that exist between Native peoples and their traditional territories. Today, at Bethel, we would like to acknowledge that the land we now call Kansas had been home to many American Indian peoples: the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Comanche, Kansa, Kiowa, Osage, Pawnee, and Wichita are tribes that are considered native to present day in Kansas. After 1830, nearly 30 tribes were given land in the areas. These tribes were the Cherokee, Chippewa, Delaware, Iowa, Iroquois, Kaskaskia, Kickapoo, Munsee, Ottawa, Peoria, Piankashaw, Potawatomi, Quapaw, Sac and Fox, Shawnee, Stockbridge, Wea, and Wyandotte.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Emma Beachy, and I'm part of the Student Ambassador Program with the Center for Sustainable Climate Solutions. So you might be aware of the recent climate strikes that have taken place across the nation, and you might also have noticed that no climate striking has taken place here on Bethel's campus. But fortunately, that's about to change. This Thursday, October 17th, from 2 to 3 p.m., Campus Ministries, EAC, and the Center for Sustainable Climate Solutions are partnering to host a climate strike right here in the Ad Building Plaza. So we hope to see you all there, and if you have any questions, you can contact me or Peter Gorzan. Thanks.
Good morning, Bethel College. All right. Hey, we came up to talk about the tricks and treats off the street event coming on October 31st from 6 to 8. We're going to be working mostly with kids in the community and having them come on campus to get candy. I know some of you have volunteered, but we're going to be sending another email out today from Anna. So if you're able to hand out candy from your room, or you want to volunteer for the event to work with the kids in the community or be a part of it yourself, make sure you come out. Be a lot of games, candy, and it's a lot of food. We're going to actually have food this year, so that should bring you out, surely. And we just want to see you there, and we want our staff as well to volunteer. We sent an email out on Friday, so we'd love to see you guys there, and get ready for a good time. Thanks.
Please put away your phones and prepare to engage with us. Thank you. This morning, on what many of us may know as Columbus Day, but we recognize as Indigenous Peoples Day, we welcome Erica Littlewolf. Erica Littlewolf is from the Northern Cheyenne tribe of southeastern Montana and currently lives in Montana. She works for Mennonite Central Committee's Central States with the Indigenous Visioning Circle, where she is committed to the work of decolonization, authentic relationship, and healing. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology and American Indian Studies and applies her schooling to social justice issues and how they affect Indigenous people. We welcome Erica. Please give her a round of applause.
Welcome, one heart na heshabe. Sa sisters na sitai na pivawo na piva ishif na piva daif. My name is Erica Littlewolf. I am Northern Cheyenne. It's good to be here, and I'm thankful for it to be here. So thank you for inviting me to be here. I got the email about Convocation, and I was like, what the heck does Convocation mean? So I Google it, and it turns out I'm thinking it's just the fancy word for assembly. And so I figure, I guess you get to college, you start using fancy words like convocation. So I'm going to start using that, you know, like I'm speaking at Convocation. Anyway, so today is Indigenous Peoples Day. Who knew that? Who's lying? Just kidding. Okay, who's heard of Columbus Day? Ah, sick, I know, right? Okay, so I was actually gonna I couldn't make up my mind on what I wanted to present on, and I was gonna do this, and then I switched to missing and murdered Indigenous women, and then I realized I was like, usually I'm over people's heads, so then I went back and I'm like, I'm gonna do this because this is the presentation on the questions I always get after I present, like, what I wanna present. And so I'm going back and presenting usually what I get questions on. And so this is going to be on the myths that people have about Native people. And it's usually because we don't get educated in school or we get miseducated in school. And so this is Reclaiming History, Indigenous Peoples Day. So who heard this in school? You know, we got that nice little thing I was singing that last night. Kiana got to hear me in 1492. Yeah, okay, so I got that too, right? And I believed it because I didn't know I was an Indian. Like, I knew I was Northern Cheyenne, but I didn't know that equated to being an Indian. And so homie sailed in like these 3 ships. And supposedly, I guess I got the message he like somewhere landed on the like East Coast. Did you guys get that? Turns out. And I knew this, like I relearned the truth, but this like blew my mind again last night. Like Kiana was watching K-dramas and I kept interrupting her K-dramas to be like, did you know this? He never landed in North America. Who knew that? Darn, I wanted the shock effect. But okay, so he landed in the Caribbean, in Central America, and South America. Yet we celebrate Columbus Day. It's like a bank holiday. And it's called Columbus Day. We're celebrating a holiday for a man that never even landed in North America, right? And he is credited with enslaving more than 5,000 indigenous people when he did land in Central America and South America. And he's like the king of colonization. Like he's given credit for being the king of colonization, which is why I'm thinking we celebrate Columbus Day, right? This is the American project. And also the word discovered, right? It's a little bit hard to discover land that people already inhabit. But if we keep using this word discover, we can keep this myth alive that this land wasn't inhabited by anyone. So keep watching that word discover because it keeps popping up even today in how we see things. If you watch, there's always this commercial that keeps coming on. It's like, come to Belize, come buy land in Belize, come discover Belize. No one lives here. Really? I don't know about that, you know? So keep watching that language about discovery. We've discovered this. Or that one Christian missionary that went to discover this native tribe and home he got. Yeah, what was he thinking, right? Okay, so here's another myth. Native American is the proper term. My coworker Karen and I, oh my gosh, you would never believe. We were riding in this car. We get picked up by this guy in an airport, and I'm sitting in the back seat because I don't want to sit in the front seat, because if you sit in the front seat, you have to talk to the person who's driving. And so I like scramble for the back seat because I'm like, I don't want to talk to this guy. And so, but I forgot Karen had laryngitis, so she couldn't talk. So then it defaulted to me in the back seat. So then I was like, I'm going to act like I'm texting, but I get car sick, so I couldn't. And so I was like, had to talk with the guy. And so I don't know how he knew. Well, somehow he knew that I was Native. So he's like, what do I call you? And I was like, Erica. And he's like, no, like, what do I call you? And I was like, yeah, Erica. And I knew what he was getting at, but I didn't want to let him off the hook. But then I started getting hot, and I started getting like embarrassed. And he was like, like Indian? And I was like, ooh, no, probably not. And he's like, oh, so is it like Native American or American Indian? And I was just like, yo, he can't even relate to me as a human being until he figures out what he can call me, right? till he can label me. And then I didn't say anything, so then he goes through the history of how in his day it was Indian and that was okay, and then he found out it was wrong, so then it became this, and then it became this, and I was just like, yo, what do I call you, homie? Like, you know, and I kind of wanted to switch it up, but then I was like, I'm tired and I'm hungry and I don't want to get into this conversation. But I don't know if people of other ethnicities have that problem, but it's always like inner word, native to native. That's the Indian problem, right? And so here we have the word Native American. We refer to Indians because Christopher Columbus thought he landed in India, and so the term Indian. And it's also seen as a derogatory term in Spanish-speaking countries, and the term would be Indio. And the term Native American actually came out of the 1960s and 1970s, and this was out of the AIM movement and terms like that. You'll also see American Indian, but people don't want to necessarily be associated with that word Indian, and they don't want to be associated with America because we predate America, the concept of America. You'll see as natives, we refer to each other as natives. It would be appropriate for you to say, oh, are you native? And we refer to each other as Indians. But if you are not native, do not call us Indians. This is inside talk between native to native that you would refer to each other that way. You would also refer to someone by their tribe, like, oh, you're Cheyenne, oh, you're Navajo, oh, you're Potawatomi. And if you want to be real hip and you know someone's native, ask them, hey, what's your nation? That would get you like plus points, because nation, we refer to ourselves as being a part of that nation versus tribe, right? So if you want plus points, be like, what's your nation? People think you're real cool. But this is just for the lower 48 states. So you got Pacific Islanders over in Hawaii that would be considered indigenous people, and up in Alaska, they're not referred to as Native Americans, they're Alaska Natives. And they also, because they're Alaska Natives and not considered Native American, by law, they're not covered under Native American law. They have their own set of laws. And the new term, as you can see on my shirt, indigenous, is actually a very political term. And so when you use this term, make sure and capitalize it. The dictionary will not capitalize it for you. It's a term to identify people that are original to the land. So you would capitalize it because it would be like using Native American. And you would use peoples with an S. And that was fought for in the United Nations system. And so when you use this term, you're referring to any people that are of indigenous origin. And that's been adopted by like people of indigenous descent in Africa, people of indigenous descent in South America, people of indigenous descent. And it's been used so that we can all come together and have one term that identifies us. If you go to Canada, they'll use terms such as First Nations, I really like that term, and First Peoples. So if you go to India, they'll use terms like Adivasi. So the terms are different, but if you want a global term referring to people, indigenous is probably the proper term. Here's another myth. There's one Native American culture, and we can also thank Columbus for this and his use of Indian. And you can also thank Hollywood, right? When you had the Italian folks come in with the wigs and playing natives, and the Westerns all showed Plains native culture. It kind of all got lumped into one. And you can also thank Dances with Wolves. Did anyone see that? Did you see it in the theaters? Yo, that was old school. It was 2 reels. It was like they put 1 reel in the theater, and then you took a break, and you came back, and they put in another reel. But I'm realizing I'm old. But Dances with Wolves, guys, go watch it. It was cutting edge for the time. It was on the Lakota people, Kevin Costner. I met him. He's actually really short in real life. And he's not very nice. He's not nice at all. But yeah, he's about my height. I was like, what? That's Kevin Costner. But yeah, anyway, yeah, so Dance of the Wolves was actually a big influence too. So that's Plains Indian culture, and that's what people have adopted as Native culture. And so, like with the war bonnets, with the teepees, not all Native people lived in teepees, you know? It's like we've had like hogans, we have earth lodges, we have wickiups, we have wigwams, all kinds of different dwelling places, and all kinds of different languages, all kinds of different cultures. For one, we would wear like buckskin outfits. You're not gonna wear that like in Florida. Come on now. You're gonna like die of heat exhaustion. So no, there is not one Native American culture. And so that's also problematic when you're calling all Native people Native American, right? Because it makes it homogenous, and there is nothing homogenous about it. All Native Americans live on reservations. Do people know what reservations are? Yes? Okay. So, oh my God, these statistics are crazy. I thought Native Americans were 2% of the population. I actually re-looked it up last night. We're only 1% of the population. And if you can imagine, we used to be the whole population of North America. Oh my God, I gotta take off my blazer. I just got hot. But you guys all know I wear this to look professional and older. So I'm still older and professional, even though I'm taking it off. Okay, I'm back, it's still me. Okay, so we're only 1% of the population. And technically, only 22% of Native people live on reservations. And this can be because there were policies to get us off the reservations. And so a lot of us are urban. The most of us live in Alaska with 19.5%, 12.9% live in Oklahoma, and the next biggest percent live in New Mexico. And so there are big urban hubs because of a period of policy called relocation, in which we live in cities such as Minneapolis, San Francisco, all throughout that Bay Area, Seattle, Denver, different cities like that where the government pushed us to move into those cities and offered us jobs and things like that, which once we got there, they weren't there. Oh my God, this one drives me nuts. American Indians get a free ride from the US government. Any of y'all thought that? I know you have. No one's gonna raise their hand. But I always, thank you. I get this all the time. Erica, didn't you get your education paid for? Yeah, obviously, because I got $40,000 in debt from it. So this idea also rides on this idea that we were given land. But that comes with the, okay, oh God, where do I even start? Okay, so you come to a continent, it's all Native people. If Native people are on this land and dwell upon this land, how do we get given land that we already are on, right? Okay, so let's start there. And so this idea that we were given free land when we were already on the land. So, given a free ride, we are not given a free ride. We access benefits like everyone else, falling in your income level. So you fill out that FAFSA thing, and wherever you fall, you can get loans or whatever from the government. We can access welfare systems, just like everyone else. On our reservations, but as you've seen, only 22% of people live on the reservation. We have, on my reservation, an 80% unemployment rate. But also, along with that, we do pay taxes. And a lot of people think that we don't pay taxes. Yes, we pay taxes. And we also have our own Indian Health Service. But in 2013, they've only spent $2,849 per person for health services, which is way below the average that is spent on the average American person. And this means if the person is able to access the healthcare services, this means if the reservation has healthcare services, this means if, like in Wichita, if there is an Indian clinic, because under healthcare laws, we don't have to get private health insurance. So Wichita doesn't have an Indian health service. So if I lived here and I needed health coverage, I would probably need to go down to Oklahoma. But you need money to do that, right? And so you have all these barriers in which to get health care. So many Native people do not access health care. Oh gosh. Mascots. You can see this right now with that baseball player, and I think it was the tomahawk chop with the Atlanta Braves. Did you guys catch that? Oh my God, it's like the hardest. It's interesting because the way Native oppression works is we're invisibilized, but like when the fall comes around, it's like we're hyper visibilized. It's like between sports, Columbus Day, and Thanksgiving. It's like, whoa, everyone is like looking at Natives, and not really in a good way, you know? So it's like, we're Native for like 3 months, and then it's like we go into hibernation and don't exist. So mascots are this huge issue, and I noticed, I think in Wichita, don't they have a crazy one? Yeah, I think they still do have a crazy one. And it's interesting, the way I broke this down is they say. So they say, the people that like the mascots, is it's honoring Native people. It's giving value to their strength and their fortitude and their tradition. And what Natives say is, no, it's not. It's derogatory. That's not who we are. That's old school. Like, we don't want that. And also what research says is it's harmful for the youth. It's harmful for Native youth to see themselves depicted in this way. It's not good for them. It's harmful for how they grow up and how they perceive themselves and their self-confidence. But the interesting thing is I was just reading an article yesterday, and it always goes back to, we get back to this privilege thing, right? And it's usually white folks who are just like, but it's tradition. But yo, that tradition is racist. And it's always people in power that are white folks that get to say what's giving us dignity, right? It's like, but no, as Native people, that's not dignified for us. We would like to say no. And that isn't dignified, and that's enough. But then there's always an argument, because then you get like the lone Native that's like, no, I'm all right with it. And then the white person will find the lone Native who's like, no, I'm all right with it. And then they'll bring them in and be like, no, this guy's all right with it. So what? It's like you got 5,000 other ones that aren't, you know? So no, it's not okay. And I've heard all the arguments, and no, it's not okay. And at this point in time, the arguments don't matter anymore. The answer is just no. Good parenting just says no. Thanksgiving proves Native Americans welcomed pilgrims. Oh my God, Thanksgiving is stressful. It's actually a day of mourning for Native people. And what's stressful is that people get this off as a holiday. It's like almost every holiday is spent on the death of Native people. Like Columbus Day, right? People don't have school today. It's because like we died. And Thanksgiving, people get off, it's because we died. And so it's a day of mourning. And so many Native people do day of prayer. This year I'm going to go to Alcatraz. They do morning prayers. People go to Plymouth Rock and do morning prayers. Because what had happened when the pilgrims came was 1/3 to 90% of the Native people had already been wiped out by disease. And so it was easy for the pilgrims to come and take the land. And I've read accounts that they celebrated Thanksgiving because they had seen that as a blessing from God, that God had wiped out these Native people and given them this land for their divine mission of starting their new religious freedom. And so this is why Thanksgiving came to be, because we were given this space to practice our Christianity and the Natives were killed, and so we're celebrating Thanksgiving. And so when little kids go to school and they make the Native hats and the pilgrims' hats, and we're all eating together at the Thanksgiving table, yo, that's not the truth. That is not the truth at all. And so for us, maybe like at our family gatherings, sometimes we'll have Thanksgiving because we don't call it Thanksgiving, we just eat because we have the day off. But we don't celebrate it like how people celebrate it. And so it's always weird, like if I go somewhere and they're always like, Happy Thanksgiving, and I'm like, yo, I'm Native, like, don't be telling me that. But yeah, so rethink Thanksgiving. There's tons of sources online. Oh my God, this one's disgusting. Okay, so Pocahontas, who's watched it? Oh, Lord. Okay, don't be writing any of what I say on this down. Like, do your own research, because I'm going to paraphrase, because it's traumatic. I'm being dramatic when I say that, but it is traumatic. Okay, so Pocahontas was like, first of all, that wasn't her real name. It was a nickname given to her by her dad. She was like 6 or 7 when this dude, John, shows up, and he's like trying to colonize them and threatening them for like all their food. And finally they kind of make friends with the Powhatan people. And then as she grows up, she ends up marrying someone from her tribe, and she has a child. And as she grows older, she gets kidnapped by the white colonizers. They kill her husband. Her baby stays with the tribe. She gets kidnapped by them, and then she ends up marrying this other John guy who isn't the John in the Pocahontas movie, ends up marrying him and having a baby. And by now she's like, I think she's like 14 or 15. And they need to make friends with the English government. So they take her over to England, and they like shuttle her around because people are thinking that they're treating natives bad, which they are. But they shuttle her around, and she's kind of forced to be like, hey, we're doing fine. But really, they're killing out all her people back home. And so she's married to this guy, ends up having a kid with him, and then they poison her and kill her by age like 20. And so somewhere she's buried over in England. Her son ends up being raised over there, the second son, and her first son ends up becoming the chief over on this side. How did that become Pocahontas, the Disney movie? And during that time, Native women on the East Coast, I mean, we have to remember the influence of Christianity and putting, Eve, what did Eve do? I don't know what Eve did, but she had, all that modesty stuff. But it was hot on the East Coast, and Native women, much like in Africa still, covered their bottoms, but their tops were exposed. So Native women were dressed this way, while the colonizers were raping their children. They were 6 years old, and in order to have their children not be raped, the women would allow themselves to be raped because they did not want their children to be raped. So you got to see all this violence going on at the same time, right? And so it's just like, yo, Disney, what the hell are you doing? Don't show your kids that show, right? It's a complete, made-up show like that. But I did want that pet raccoon, I'm not going to lie. Like, who didn't want that raccoon? But, so that story conflated. And it's interesting because that tribe that she comes from was actually just made a federally recognized tribe. So it's like they got this whole story going by a tribe that wasn't even considered a tribe. What do I got next? 10. Oh my God. All Native Americans get casino money. I always get this. I don't, where does this come from? Because I'm sure if there was like a rich Native, you'd be seeing it in Forbes. But this quote, I have got to read this quote because it blows my mind. It says, this is a fascinating suspension of logic. Native people can simultaneously be represented collectively, all on government welfare, and rich because of casinos. So what they're saying is somehow people lose their logic, and we can be like the poorest and yet the richest at the same time, right? So it's like people know we're on all these government systems, but yet somehow we're secretly getting all this money from casinos. there's only been 26 casinos that have topped 250 million a year. And there's only 459 gaming establishments on Indian land. And that doesn't mean they're Indian owned. That could be someone else coming in and putting a casino on Indian land, which could go to whoever owns that casino. And I would also add these casinos, like these 26 that make a lot of money. It is not culturally appropriate for us to obtain wealth. We are seen more wealthy in giving away things. And so these tribes that do have these casinos and do make profit, they give their profit away. And so a lot of them give their money to poorer tribes, like usually to Pine Ridge or places like that, that when natural disasters happen and the government does not respond, these tribes that have more money will respond to these because they're better capable and know and have the relationships to respond. So if you get that in the mix, like you can't think of us as like, yeah, we want to get rich. No, it'd actually be embarrassing to be rich. Your family would talk about you like you're a hoarder. Your community would probably like push you out because you're not being generous. You're better off being generous and giving your stuff away. Oh. Go back. Where's my AV guy? I think that was my, oh my God. This is my last slide. Has anyone ever said this? Be honest. Okay, thank you. I get this all the time. And I'm not gonna go into much detail, because I could. I get this all the time. And it's like I speak, and no joke, someone will come up to me and I feel like, hey, I did a pretty good job and I covered all these cool topics. And someone will come up to me and they'll be like, hey, my great-great-grandma was a Cherokee princess. And I'll be like, okay. And yo, that's weird, for one, but it's an inside joke among every Native community because it's always Cherokee and it's always a princess. Yo, Natives never had no princesses. For one, that's funny. Another one is the use of like Cherokee, because I'm not even gonna explain that one. It's just funny if you're Native. It's always a great-grandmother. Like, why not just a grandmother? Why not great? It's always just one great, and it's always on the mother's side, so it's always very matrilineal. And the funny thing is so what does that mean? And it's usually people that look very phenotypically white. And I think the one thing I would have to say about that is, so what are you doing for Native people? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Because when you say that, you're reproducing a stereotype that Native ancestry is blood-born, you know, like a pedigree, like a dog. And there is such a thing as blood quantum. We get quantified, right? Like, if you're half Native, if you're full-blood Native. And so it's not like I'm going up to someone and being like, hey, I'm half African American. Or, hey, I'm not going up to a white person and being like, I'm 1/16 white. Who does that, right? And so it's like, when you do that with Natives, it's like you're perpetuating stereotypes, you're perpetuating blood quantum, and it doesn't speak to your lived reality. It doesn't speak to anything, and it's actually offensive, offensive and on the side funny. I'm gonna end there because I know you're gonna start packing your backpacks in like 9 minutes. So I got time for questions.
Questions from the audience? We may also have a couple submitted electronically.
And I'm going to write them down so I can use them for my next presentation.
Hi.
Hey.
You're really funny, by the way. Just,
Oh my God.
So do you know who Dragon Canoe is in Kula Kula?
Who?
Dragon Canoe?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. But you should look him up. I want to talk to you about him. Maybe you can give me more information.
How do you spell?
Do you like dragging? Like he drug a canoe, but it was like dragging and then straight up canoe.
Okay, cool.
We can talk about it later.
I'm going to Google it.
You're welcome.
Googling is a skill, by the way. I used to use Wikipedia as a source when I went to college.
Okay, we have a question from the thing. Where'd it go? How do other mascots that have to do with labeling people, as the Patriots, Celtics, Fighting Irish, 49ers, and 76ers, compare to the native mascots, the Chiefs, Braves, Indians, and Redskins?
Okay, give me the name off the first one slowly.
Patriots,
Patriots,
Celtics,
Celtics,
Fighting Irish,
Irish,
49ers,
49ers,
and 76ers.
76ers. Does anyone see anything in common there? What do you guys see? White people. Hey. Hey, does that answer the question? Do we need elaboration? Okay, we'll leave that one at that.
Quiet down. I believe we have another question from the audience.
My bad, I got you pumped up.
Another question is, as a future
Where
kindergarten...
are you?
Right here.
Where? Ah! Ah! Okay.
As a future kindergartner teacher, what would be the best way to celebrate or acknowledge Thanksgiving?
Don't. No, I'm just kidding. Celebrate kindergarten. Man, I don't know. That's like I think I'm talking. I do believe I'm talking. Culturally, in Native culture, when you talk when someone else is talking, it's like #1 rule of rudeness. Cultural competency. So, I don't know, man. Kindergarten's what, 5? I don't, 5's not my specialty. I don't know, man. Like, do you know, Karen? Okay, Karen says tell the story. I have dogs. I don't have kids. But I tell my dog the truth. You know, I'm like, Terry, if you keep eating this way, you're not going to be able to walk. And dogs come in different sizes, but your inverted triangle is becoming a rectangle. And so I have resources. So if you want to email me, Erica Littlewolf at mcc.org, whoever sent that question, I will find you resources. That'll be fabulous. And I'm writing that down. Oh my God, should I tell you guys a funny story? Okay. Wait, this was a meme once, but I feel like they hijacked it from my real life. Okay, so it was my second senior year of college, and I had to do this Okay, first of all, I put off speech class till my last semester of my second year of college, senior year of college. So my first semester of my second year, senior year of college, I had to do my senior capstone in psychology. And so we had to research these psychology buffs, and I don't remember who my dude was. And so, of course, I didn't do it till the night before it was due. And so I stayed up super late. And then at that time, we didn't have laptops, so I stayed in the computer lab till it shut down. And then I woke up super early and went to the computer lab and finished it. And then I went to class, and every psychology class packed into one room, and all my psychology professors were there. And supposedly the rumor was if you didn't pass, you didn't get your degree. And so I was on edge, and so I pumped myself up with caffeine. That's when I learned to drink coffee, was college, because at some point it switched from soda to coffee. And so I was pumped, and I didn't know really how to public speak because I didn't take speech class because I had anxiety. And so I was talking, and I was tired, and I was pumped up on caffeine. And during this one part, I was supposed to say the structure of an organism. And I said, the structure of an orgasm. And after I said it, people were like, and I remember looking at one lady's face, and she kind of went, and I was like, and of course I could have just let it slide, but my brain was just catching up with my mouth. And so I was like, did I just say orgasm? And the whole class was like, yeah! And then everyone falls out laughing. And I wanted to fall on the floor and belly laugh, because literally I was falling apart. I wasn't even embarrassed. I mean, I turned red, but I wasn't embarrassed. But I pulled myself together. And when I got my grade, my professor was like, you had B content, but since you held it together, I give you an A. So always use that if you feel like you got B content. Okay, we got anything else?
Hi, thank you for speaking today. This was really interesting. My question is sort of related to this last slide about the great-grandmother thing. So recently there's been some stuff with Elizabeth Warren talking about Indigenous heritage, and I just wondered your perspective on that and sort of its treatment in the media, if you could speak to that a little bit.
EW, what were you thinking? Right, I felt really sad that she felt like she had to respond to the president. Did I just call him that? Yes, I did. Okay, so, but she fed upon, she put his antagonizing over the well-being of the Native community and perpetuated a stereotype by using a DNA test, which perpetuates blood quantum, right? That the only way to be Native is through blood quantum. And this has been, it's a government-used policy. During the Holocaust, when they gave you numbers, every Native person, we carry a card with us, and we have a number. Do people know this? We have an ID card with us, and it says we are a certain degree of Indian blood. And so since my mother is white, she's Jewish, my card will say you are half-degree Indian blood. Hey, your talking's really rude. Do you want to share with what you're saying? I'm totally willing to share the stage. Totally willing. I'm looking at you. And it's awkward, right? So was there a question? Because I'm a little bit thinking that I shouldn't have to interrupt this young woman's question because there's a group of people that think they're privileged and think their conversation is a little bit more important, right? On Indigenous Peoples Day. So I'm thinking if you got something important to say, then come and say it. Because that is privilege.
Doug.
And I can answer your question afterwards, but I feel done because that's rude.
Please give a round of applause to Erica Littlewolf. Please feel free to come up